Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a good day. I hope you're having a cracker of a Sunday, Monday, whatever day you're having. A very good evening. And today we have come together to present a point. I request our fellow mates to kindly switch off their mics because it is giving a feedback. All right, now that's done. Let us begin. Hello, people. Welcome to SDNX and welcome to our lovely evening where we will be having a small little discussion about the wrath that us people are having and the society is having with the education system, the sort of education system that our India has. We are two presenters today. We'll be your host. My name is Vishal Gautam and I have Shivika Lamba with us. We two are presenting our session today with you and sharing our insights of what we have come up with so far and whatever the things are that we can deliver to you. Let us begin right into it. Today, I'm here to tell you a story which is the world's most interesting. The world's most interesting story. Cool? Before I start, let's play a game, all right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you people about a bunch of seemingly random Indian celebrities, and you're going to tell me what they all have in common. All right? Can we do this? Can we? All right, super. Assume you want to do. What does this young charming Bollywood actress, this veteran politician, this acclaimed economist, and this cricketer, what do all of these people have in common? Anyone? I think some of you must have guessed the answer. They are all engineers by education. Cool, right? In fact, let me share with you some fascinating insight. Ever since our independence in 1947, we have produced zero Nobel laureate in science. The US alone has produced 100 plus since then. Awesome, no? And in the Olympics, India has produced 26 Olympic medals. Do you want to know how much China produced? It did 100 in just 1 year during 2008 Olympic Games. However, there are something we have produced more than US and China combined. Everyone must have guessed by now, I'm sure. The number of engineers. Now, who am I and why am I responsible to share this with you? I am the vocalist. I am the young voice of the youth. A person who has been in the system long enough, who has experienced the system long enough to be sharing his insights about the problems and the complaints that we have with our system. The main the main headlines I shared with you: the independence, the Olympic medals, the number of Nobel laureates. It bothers me. It bothers me to a point that I cannot do just one thing, but I just all I have to do is just get out there, gather a bunch of people who are like-minded, and actually aim to bring a change. A lot of complaints can be made, and regarding those complaints, we have a solution to us, which is the national education policy. And even though it is a very comprehensive, and maybe we'll talk about it many times in life, but let me share some headline points, some of the key points that this Indian education has. Before beginning, I'll start with this small quote: Indian schools are the biggest resource tragedy. How many of you all do you agree? Okay, so let us talk about the complaints that we have with our education system. Even though specific complaints will vary with the vintage of the person you ask or the generation of the person you ask, but there will be some common complaints that will be common across generations. Complaints that have disintegrated our system. And have transcended through years. One, for example, is that our education doesn't get you jobs. See, too many of what we study is irrelevant to our lives. I do believe that the level of education that we get is far beyond global standards, but that is completely theoretical. We can produce great scientists, but only scientists do not run the world. There are a lot more people needed, and the education that we get, the implementation of the learning, is very difficult. In 1960 to 1965, this was the period in which the peak of unemployment youth was there in India. And this film came out about this unemployed educated youth. And in this film, they had a song. The song goes like, हाल चाल ठीक ठाक है, सब ठीक ठाक है, बीए किया है, एमए किया है, लगता है वो भी एमए किया है, काम नहीं है वरना यहाँ आपकी दुआ से सब ठीक ठाक है. So these are the complaints of our education system, which this new education policy has tried to address. I can count some other complaints also. For example, our education system is too exam centric. It is a Russian roulette. You know what a Russian roulette is? Okay. Russian roulette is when you take a revolver, put a bullet in one of its chamber out of the six, and then you close it and just give it a random spin. Now what do you now you don't know which chamber the bullet is in, right? So now what do? You put the gun to your head and pull the trigger. Chances of you surviving are 5 and 1. I'm sorry, chances of you surviving are 5 and 6. But there's one chance which can kill you. Now, if this were a game of gambling, these odds would have been quite promising and I would have definitely played my bet. But this is life and it is not gambling, and chance any odds, no matter how good or bad they are odds and they cannot be taken with life. Now, unfortunately, our education system has become like that, which means when you go out there, there are chances that you will survive, which means you will pass, or you may even get decent marks. But what if you don't then? What if you fail? Then you have a bullet to your head. You are now the history, or maybe a footnote to history. But even if you are in the five lucky ones who are now in a situation where everybody gets 95%. Now, where do you go with your marks? The marks that you got with all.
Vishal, I think you're muted.
Oh my god, there was a technical glitch. Okay, so it's fine here now. Which slide was I? Can anybody tell me? Was it this one or was it this
After this.
after this?
Yes, here.
Okay, this one. The marks that you got, the marks that you got could have spent, you could have spent that time learning a skill. Now, is it true that now it is true that those subjects definitely help your brain grow, but what will you do with the brain if you don't have employment or you don't have a job? And this is madness, right? Because of this madness, a lot of great talents do not survive. These are the things that can destroy a life very early on. But for those who survived, these things, these marks, turn out not to be so relevant. An exam takes up just one day of your life, or rather, just 3 hours. Those 3 hours take up 1 year of your life. Now, what sort of mathematics is this, do you say? I mean, in which world 3 hours is equal to 1 year? Certainly not the kind which will help you grow as humans, or certainly not the kind which will help us humans evolve. This mathematics, though, will definitely bring us back to being apes. Our education system is too standardized and it's not customized. There's too much corruption, there's too much commercialization, and there's too much insularity. Now, remember the story back again I came up with regarding the engineers. Why do we have so many engineers? Can anybody tell me what is the thing that India has produced so much of engineers since 1960, or since independence, so to speak?
Means, are you asking how many engineers we produce since independence?
No, I mean, I'm asking what is the reason that so many engineers are there today?
India is good at following trends, I guess. It's goes with engineering, it goes with medical, it's go with anything like from radiowala to anything like people follow the trend. So that's India too. That means from my perspective.
Exactly, that's one point. Definitely, India is one place, one hell of a trend following place. And if we could make up into some rather than being engineers, what if we try to come up with making India something fond of the Renaissance period that we saw that we had in France? Anybody? Why is it that India has a lot of engineers? Okay, this this fact is accustomed to this insularity problem. This insularity is when you have when you're accustomed to learning only one specific regime of subject. The most important question of our lives: which subject to pick in our class 11? Whether to pick humanities, whether to pick science, or whether to pick commerce. Certainly, for some of the people, it's not so difficult question, but to a lot of us, it is. For me, example, I loved engineering and I wanted to be in it, but also there was a part who wanted to know a lot about humanities as well, but I couldn't learn it formally. And science was divided into this harsh, rigid physics, chemistry, mathematics domain, or biology if you are in that department. This separation that has brought India into making more engineers than making more lives or making people employed. Because of this system, today we have A students that work for the B students, and the C students run the business. Early school life, or in fact all school life, you learn with your eyes, a little bit with your ears, and a lot less with your hands. Indian education system doesn't train you to work with your hands. It means it doesn't focus enough on learning experimental values. It doesn't focus enough in teaching skills like welding. It doesn't focus enough in teaching skills like mechanic, machining, polishing, grinding, whatever work that we in Indians in general we see as low class. Like who wants to become a carpenter? I mean, I do, but will the society accept me if I become a carpenter and my father is from some big engineering firm? No, definitely not, right? This education system is the reason that today we have we don't have a lot of experimental learnings. Now, where will all our inventors go? All our current situation system has to offer is 6 hours of constant lectures includes almost all the ingredient to make an interesting subject completely boring. You see, there's nothing that you can do about it because you have to sit through those 6 hours if you were in school and have to look at the teacher's face, and whatever urges you are having, whatever things you're having, you cannot learn anything like that. But I have a love and lot of respect for those people who put their everything to maintain the interest of the subject. I'm sure you must know this man? I'm sure you must know this picture.
I do, I do. I have seen it. Like he is my, ideal. Like
Yes,
truly, truly a marvelous person from MIT.
definitely. Walter Lewins. This lecture is the only, the most watched lecture in the entire informative culture history. This has got somewhat related to. I'm not sure how many views this has got on YouTube, but this certainly is the most popular lecture out there. Teachers like Walter Lewins make education. They form the backbone of the education. We have similar educators in India as well. But what are we doing to help boost their confidence to be more like it and to be less like the teachers that we generally face? I'm sure if there is a system that can come up with who could help these teachers, there's nothing that us Indians can stop. That can stop us Indians, and there's nothing that can stop our country to become the world's number one. With all that, I thank you all, and I invite Shivika to bring her insights and to educate us people about what this new education policy is all about. The points. Shivika, all you have.
Right. Okay, so thank you, Vishal, for sharing all the drawbacks of our current education policy. So, as we all know, last year the government allocated 99,300 crore for education sector. They introduced the National Education Policy, that is NEP, which aims at universalization of education. So let's see what it means for us. NEP 2020 is a 13-member committee commissioned to transform both school and higher education sectors. The panel is led by Dr. K. Kasturi Rangan, former chief of ISRO. As you can see in this picture, the committee is with the Education Minister Ramesh Pokhriyal. NEP is a comprehensive framework to guide the development of education in the country. The NEP lays particular emphasis on development of creative potential. Creative potential of everyone. It is based on principle that education must develop not only foundational capabilities of literacy and numeracy, but also higher order cognitive capabilities such as critical thinking and problem solving. It also includes social, ethical, and emotional capabilities. Let me tell you, the pursuit of knowledge, gyan, wisdom, pragya, and truth, satya, was always considered in Indian thought of philosophy as the highest human goal. The aim of education in ancient India was not just the acquisition of knowledge as preparation of life in this world or life beyond schooling, but for complete realization and liberation of self. Like so, NEP 2020 is imperative for our country's developmental needs. A new policy usually comes along every few decades. The latest policy is India's third. It replaces the 1986 NEP, which was in place for the last 34 years. A major development since last policy of 1986-92 has been the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, which laid down legal underpinning for achieving universal elementary education. The fundamental principles that will guide both the education system at large as well as the individual institute within it are many, but I will be discussing the top 5. Recognizing, identifying, and fostering the unique capabilities of each student by sensitizing teachers as well as parents to promote each student's holistic development in both academic and non-academic sphere. Focusing on the highest priority of achieving foundational literacy and numeracy by all students by grade 3. Multidisciplinary and holistic education across the science, arts, social science, humanity, and sports for a multidisciplinary world in order to ensure the unity and integrity of all knowledge. Extensive use of technology and teaching and learning, removing language barrier, increasing access to Divyang students, and educational planning and management. Teachers and faculty as the heart of learning process, their recruitment, continuous professional development, positive working environment, and service conditions. The vision of the policy is to instill among the learners a deep-rooted pride in being Indian, not only in thought but also in spirit, intellect, and deeds. It also focuses on developmental knowledge, skills, values, and dispositions that support responsible commitment to human rights, sustainable development, and living and global well-being, thereby reflecting a truly global citizen. Now that we understand the outline, I will talk about a few key takeaways, starting with Early Childhood Care and Education, ECCE. The pros of this are, it extends the right to education eligibility window from 6 to 14 years to 3 to 18 years, with goal of having 100% of children school ready by 2030. The policy pushes for universalization of ECCE. Investments in infrastructure such as play equipment and child-friendly buildings, as well as continuous professional development of ECCE teachers and Anganwadi workers through a 6-month certification program, including some online components. However, the drawbacks of this are maintaining the status quo of having curriculum under one ministry and implementation with 3 different ministries. This is a well-known gap, and NEP's recommendation of a joint task force doesn't seem adequate. Also, there's a lack of clarity around whether every Anganwadi or pre-primary learning center will be equipped with a high-quality teacher and a worker. Next we have is the Foundation Literacy and Numeracy. A 3-month preparatory course for students, access to digital content through Energize textbook, student-led peer learning, and community tutoring are recommended as some of the means to achieve 100% foundation level, that is up to grade 3 learning by 2025. Teacher vacancy to be filled in a time-bound manner with a priority to disadvantaged area of and sections of society. However, there's no definition of what a basic text against which literacy will be measured is, and also a national book promotion policy is mentioned. However, more than a policy on books, it is important to prioritize access to relevant age-appropriate reading material across different languages for students, which is already an ongoing focus of government programs such as Samarg Shiksha. Next, we have the universal access to education at all levels. Commitment to achieve gross enrollment ratio across all levels by 2030 through rigorous tracking of 100% of children through a technology-based platform to ensure that nobody is left behind. Also, investment in resources such as infrastructure and teachers for students till grade 12, as well as ensuring social workers and counselor are made available to students so they can address factors contributing to the dropout rates. However, there's no clarity on the ratio of social workers or counselors to children, and at what level will they be appointed. There's no clear mention of legal violation, including child marriage and child labor, which contributes to school dropouts. And also, there's no clarity about the social and professional value of the open learning courses made available to children who are unable to access schooling. Curriculum and pedagogy in schools. The policy encourages local languages to be the medium of instruction at least up to grade 5. This promotes bilingual education and textbooks for learning as well as multiple languages at middle and secondary level. The suggested 5+3+3+4 class system focusing on defining learning levels at each critical juncture, taking a multidisciplinary approach and reducing content by targeting core learning competencies. New age subjects such as coding and computational thinking introduced at a middle school level. There are challenges in translating list of pedagogies, values, good to have skills into teacher practices or student behaviors. While the policy asks educators to integrate Indian knowledge system covering subjects such as yoga, Indian philosophy in the syllabus, however, these upskilling educators to integrate these complex ideas is a challenge. Teachers and teacher education. This proposes 4-year B.Ed undergrad program by 2030 as minimum qualification for teachers. It also reduces excess teacher transfer and provide local residents, leading to better continuity of teachers with students. Also, the promotion would be based on merit rather than on seniority. The cons of this are missed opportunities for global practice of linking credits with effectiveness of in-service teacher training. There is no strong commitment to improving support for special education. The policy talks about set-up courses for current special educators, but the ratio of special educators to students are still not adequate. Equitable and inclusive education. The Gender Inclusive Fund, which supports female and transgender students, drives state-level inclusion activities, developing sufficient infrastructure that enables target onboarding and safety of the students. Special Education Zone and Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalayas to be set up in aspirational districts with target focusing on improving the quality and the quantity of learning. However, there are no action points or time-bound goals in bringing culture of inclusion at school level. The issue of female student safety and sexual abuse is not addressed either at boarding school level or in Gender Conclusion Fund. Okay, in conclusion, here are some of the high impact areas that I see will be affected by NEP 2020. The conventional 10 plus 2 schooling structure is replaced by the 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 structure corresponding to ages 3 to 8, 8 to 11, 11 to 14, and 14 to 18 respectively. To implement this change at grassroots level curriculum, content, and pedagogy restructuring must be done. A regulatory body, NET, National Education Alliance for Technology, has been set up to integrate technology for better learning outcomes. NET aims to use artificial intelligence to personalize learning experience. However, one of the biggest challenges is to establish a robust digital structure in remote areas. TRARUC, which is Performance Assessment Review and Analysis of Knowledge for Holistic Development, a national assessment center has been proposed to set up regular checks on the education system, shifting the focus of assessment from academic grades to higher performance standard demonstrated through competence across social levels. Home language or local language will be used preferably till grade 8, as mother tongue lets students grasp complex concepts easily. NEP 2020 emphasis on multidisciplinary learning and no separations are made between vocalizational and academic streams. Students select subject of their choices across streams to build unique careers for future jobs. Educators have to be trained digitally to blend into new digital learning process. Also, the NEP proposes sweeping changes, including opening up of the Indian higher education to foreign universities, dismantling of the UGC and All India Council for Technical Education, introduction of a 4-year multidisciplinary undergrad program with multiple exit options and discontinuation of the MPhil program. Also, there would be multiple entry and exit options in degree careers. NEP 2020 is a milestone in the history of education system in India. It will provide the much needed tectonic shift in pedagogical system, emphasizing experiential and practical
Uh, Hi guys, I have a question if you don't mind, Vishal and Shavika.
Sure, sir, sure.
Okay. So because this is just to break the ice, because nobody is asking something after this wonderful session you people had. So it's about where you see this national education policy. Like, what is the planning of NEP to involve space education in it? Means you must have gone through some details of NEP. Like, have you find in like any type of documents of NEP, like how the government is literally planning, space education involvement in their current education system? Because we cannot see any single chapter in the related to rockets, satellites, or space technology. Of course, we have the universe chapter, which is nothing to in comparison what is happening currently in India. So how NEP is basically giving a room to space education? Like, this is my question.
Okay. NEP in the beginning, it focuses. NEP has this that it has been criticized firstly because of the fact that it is all theoretical currently and it is not compulsory in everywhere. And institutions and schools can choose to take this NEP policy, or they make their own, or they can follow the state guidelines or the state rules as well. Regarding your question with the space startups and what this is do what there are a lot of things that NEP has brought. The official documentation says that, mm, firstly, to encourage people to do more, to have more practical knowledge. This will be done from the class 6th onwards, that students will be sent to internships firstly, and those internships will be will obviously be uh, done in industries like education department only. So space education is one prime place to put your investments in, or put your students in as interns, because that is where the maximum amount of learning can happen. It covers from all the details, from, if you say, if you're a state startup, space startup that launches rockets, then from electrical department to the orbital mechanics, you have to cover everything. The computer science, if the name is the space, but it's an overall general department. So I'm sure government must have had this in their mind already. So the curriculum will not be what has been stated by the document, that the curriculum will not be only exam focused, and it will not be only it will not be in the final exam focus. The curriculum will be it will be a constant evaluation. This pattern will be, I'm not sure what the pattern is called, but the students will be graded throughout the span of their time, and not just those one short time span of 3 hours. And with the with this in mind, they are not, even in the examination patterns, they will have not only theoretical based question but practical questions as well. That is what I can make out of NEP as currently.
Okay. My next question is basically because I'm a educator by heart, right? So I wanted to understand, like, let's say I'm an inspired educator and I really want to, get affected by NEP, like, because, and this is to Shivika. Like you mentioned, some of the support given by the NEP and the entire infrastructure, what government is, trying to introduce with NEP. So as an educator, I clearly see that I need an upgrade, because if we are really putting future technologies into the curriculum, like AI, or let's say big data, or blockchain, or virtual reality, or space, or drones, because I can see so many things in the NEP. Now, how do you think the current educator, which is only, like, no offense, but only expected to create good students who can create good grades, like more than 90%, is that's the job of good educator. So how, as an educator, because I cannot teach drones unless I know it, right? So how a common educator prepare, like, because and I cannot see this, that I educator go to YouTube, learn how things are going. Because I don't have much time, because educators, being a teacher, is highly we provide a lot of time in school, and then we get underpaid, right? And even in that type of payment structure, putting extra efforts in learning drones and IoT, and this seems very complicated. So how the government is basically planning this NEP, where they are they really providing any technical support or any type of support where educators, not students, educator can upgrade our skills? I guess Nidhi ji can really, like connect with this question, because like she is a very great educator, like serving as a teacher from last 15 years. So this is a very common question which all the inspired educators can ask. What government have for educators to upgrade themselves so that we can transform things for the students?
Right. So, like Vishal said, NEP is now just theory for now, but government has also said that they would be training the teachers, like I had mentioned. So, they would be training the teachers through online courses, and a minimum requirement is needed for them to now be an educator. So that I really think would help them in understanding all these different topics, such as drones and space and everything. And also maybe an educator who is really interested in like one particular subject can pick that up and learn it, and then go ahead and teach it to their students. So for now, I think the government has been has is saying that they would host many online courses that the educators can take, through which they would be evaluated and accordingly be given. Yeah, that's what I have to say.
Yeah. Thank you.
Another point I would like to add to this, sir, it is that teaching now as a profession can be taken by anyone, and they will not have to go through those 2 years of BA doing a second bachelor's again if they are bachelors already. Uh, to enhance the teaching skills and to enhance the quality of the teacher, the B.Ed will now be a 4-year integrated program. So I have two things to here to share. First is, if you what you can do is you can do a 4-year B.Ed program and then you can teach, or you can have you can have a bachelor's degree and have a 2 years of B.Ed program instead of 4. Or for those people who have completed their bachelor's degree with 4 years, those 4 years of a bachelor's degree, they just have to spend 1 year learning, 1 year doing this another B.Ed degree. So this is a great plus point. Say out of the course, maybe after 4 years you want to become a teacher in a school. Firstly, you will have to spend just 1 year getting a B.Ed degree to get qualified enough to be teaching somewhere. So that is a plus point. And not just only that, regarding the previous point, the startups, there are changes in the system. That is, say if you get enrolled in a 4-year program, what if you don't like it after 1 year? So there are two systems. One is credit transfer. So after first year, if you complete your course just 1 year, then you'll get a certificate. If you complete your program in 2 years, then you will get a diploma. If you complete 3 years in it, then you get a bachelor's degree. Or if you complete your education with 4 years, if you do a full program that you're enrolled in, you'll get a research bachelor's, which means that next time you want to apply for something like MA or MSc, you don't have to spend another 2 years or another 3 years, even if you are going to do MSc in research. You just have to spend 1 year if you have spent your time learning those 4 years. So that is the good thing. And also, MSc has been abolished. These facts have been the key headlines.
True, Vishal, I totally agree. Like teaching can be more beautiful if working professional from the industry volunteer or opt teaching as a career. Like physics, maths, and technical things in school can be more inspiring if an engineer become your teacher, right? So totally agree. Thank you for your answers, Shivika and Vishal. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, Vishal, this is for you. May I speak?
Yes,
Hello?
ma'am. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Please.
This was just regarding suppose we are already teachers, like I'm a teacher. Do we need to upgrade ourselves to this life skills? Will there be another refresher course or something like that for us, which would allow us to teach? Because if we finished our BEd long ago, I'm sure now we can't go back and do the course again. So at least a refresher course from the government side that would help us to upgrade.
Okay, ma'am. So, with all respect, uh, I'm happy, and it's great to be talking to a teacher since after a long time, and I'm very happy to connect.
Thanks.
I'll start with a simple example. Do you
Yeah.
use the same phone that you have been using, that you used 5 years ago?
No, I agree with the upgradation, but will it be provided by the government
Yes.
or should we upgrade ourselves?
For the upcoming teachers,
Y-
the government has planned to come up with an initiative where they will provide a 6 month certificate program for initial educators.
I think they've
And
already started it with the Diksha app. They've already
yes,
started doing that.
exactly. They have the
But
Diksha app.
but I don't think it's really sufficient. I think we need something more.
It is going to take a little bit of time to get properly implemented because the system is new. Not many
Hmm.
people know about this. So if we wait for another 2, 3, 4 years, maybe 5 years
Hmm.
down the line, we'll have a proper system where trained professionals, where people who have spent most of their life in teaching, now they want to upgrade towards with the skill set of towards new generation.
Hmm.
These certificate programs and these additional learning programs will definitely be helpful.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Vishal, I have one question. Can I
Yes,
ask?
sure, ma'am.
So the question is, as we know that the new national education policy is saying that after 12th, there would be only one single entry exam.
Yes, ma'am. CEE.
Yes. So this single entry exam, how this will be taken for means one exam for all the students of 12th standard. Now they will be enrolling into different universities. Those universities are private universities, government universities. So means what do you think how it is going to get implemented?
Okay, ma'am. Yeah, this I believe is truly one of the best points of this education policy, which is that when I was applying for colleges, there were too many exams to take. I had to take JEE mains. I had If I wanted to go to Karnataka, I had to take uh, I don't remember the name. If I had to go to Tamil Nadu, I had to take TNEA. There were a lot of examinations that one has to take, and not examination that not everybody is known to. I mean, I am from Uttar Pradesh and I want to study in Karnataka, but when I found out there were colleges in it, there were colleges in there. Uh, I found out that the deadline was already over to apply, and moreover, it's a statistics that out of 100 people who complete their higher education, only 24% of the people actually enroll for a higher degree program. So this is the main issue here. The statistics, only 24 people out of 100, only 24 people apply for college and actually do college. This is this To improvise this CEE has been brought. And what the CCE will do is this is just one generalized exam which you can take and apply to anywhere in India. Definitely, it's one big hurdle solved. But there's one catch here now. CEE is again not compulsory. Colleges may or may not have this as their part of intake curriculum, because most of the colleges they host their own exam, and those exams give them some revenue, and nobody would want to skip a revenue like that just because they want to make the nation better, because that isn't how the world works. Most of the people in the industry will always be selfish, unfortunately. But for now, that is what we have. And CEE will not be applicable for the highest institutions like IITs or uh, those doctor or AIMS and other doctor colleges, or some greatest law colleges which hold their own examinations. But for most of the colleges, I definitely think CEE will be applicable, and most colleges will apply it. Even though some may not, but some will, and this will definitely help. This will help boost diversity across the nation, because a person from Jammu Kashmir now go to Kerala and study. And
Okay, so suppose I'm from Madhya Pradesh, and I want to enroll in a Bangalore college, in Karnataka college. Means after my 12th. So will there be any additional benefit if a person belongs to the same state? Will it be added in the marks, or means I think those policies will come later, but what means I just want to know your thought process.
I think this reservation of domicile may be possible, yes,
Yes.
to encourage the people to study from which because this benefits, again, this is all connected. The people that pay taxes, they have their children studying. If they also have their children studying in the same government in which they pay taxes, and they get a job there, the overall GDP of the state grows. So, just like when you move out of the country, if you move out of the state-wise development changes. So if some talented person is there, they obviously want more people to stay in their own state, which is beneficial as per se for the government. But this also diversifies. I mean, people who want to study outside and not just stick to one particular area where they have been through, they will be encouraged to do so.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, just another small query. This is to Shivika. According to this policy, most of it is depending on life skills. That is to prepare a child to be able to survive without just a degree. That's what I presume this policy is about. Now,
Yes, ma'am.
normally after sixth standard, a child I do not think is really capable of deciding what he or she wants. It's more the parents who are putting the pressure. You have to do this or whatever courses. So
Right.
last year, what I've realized is this coding has come up, and
Yes.
everything suddenly into coding, coding, coding. Like earlier, if you say 10 years ago, everyone wanted the child to become a doctor or an engineer. Now,
Right.
everyone wants the child to go in for coding. Now, it's
Yeah.
more of parental pressure than really the child's pressure. Now, my question is, if suppose I want to do carpentry, if I'm in standard 6 and I want to do carpentry, I do 1 year of it and I suddenly realize, okay, I don't want to do it. And next year I decide to change my life skill. So by the
Right.
time the child is 18 years old or say 20 years old, uh, they've not really mastered anything in this process. So how is this really going to help them as a life skill? It would be an added hobby provided in school, according to me. I mean,
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
so
I get that, but I actually believe that after sixth grade, a child is fully capable of wanting whatever course he or she likes. So with that, I'm sure even the child has some goals in his mind, saying that if I want to be a carpenter, I'm sure he will not just be like, okay, now I don't want to be a carpenter. So also with coding, like you said, I think almost all parents want their kids to learn coding because that's the new fever nowadays. But if a child is actually given a chance, I'm sure they'll pick up the right thing. And if not, they're always good in multiple things. So they can have like multiple career options before them rather than just sticking to one. So I look at this in a good way rather than a drawback.
So I, as an educator, definitely look at it in a positive way. But knowing a parent's side of view, normally they still are wanting a paper certificate. I mean,
Right.
okay, my child has a degree. That matters more. I think it will take some time for the mentality of the parents also to
That's true.
change. So
Yes.
yeah, sure. Thank you.
Ma'am, if you could
Okay.
allow me, I could invest some points in this too.
Yes, sir.
Oh yeah, I agree definitely. There are two things which can happen with a skill. One is, let's say if a person has decided not to stick to a not to skill, say in sixth standard the person has taken carpentry, and in seventh standard the person realized that more appropriate education or skill for him or her was coding. So what happens then? The question is, or maybe in eighth standard it happens. Now the skills can be are transferable, because since now our education, what we have gone through is they have never focused on any particular skills already. So if they focus in carpentry and in 8th class they shift towards coding, they have two different lessons. Now they are not just amateur coders, they are pro, almost moderate carpenters and amateur programmers. So what this will happen in the end, the person who has taken carpentry in his early life, who chooses programming, the person can may create some softwares or application regarding, they can combine the two. They know the problems that are there with the carpentry people, and they can solve problems. The skills are there, of course. And this mentality that forcing students, I definitely think this is going to happen for the initial part, as long as the people who have not been associated with this NEP program is concerned. But 5 year down the line, when some new people become parents, when their kids will grow, I'm sure they will not force their children, because this is how things grow up. In the early stages, you criticize a program and then you get used to it and then you follow it.
Accept it. Yes, yes, definitely. Yeah. By when is this supposed to be actually implemented? Any idea, Shivika ma'am?
2025 is what they're aiming for at the moment.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Precious.
I have one last question to, yeah. Yes, actually, I wanted to ask a question before you end the session. This question is to Shivika.
Yes, ma'am.
As yeah, so as we are implementing the new national education policy,
Right.
how about the national education policy says that you should integrate art with the subjects. So how it
Right.
is going to help students and the community?
Okay, well, I know we all look at arts as a subject which is not very useful in life and everything, but think of it in this way that let's say your child is learning coding and doing a lot of other hands-on jobs. So I think subjects are in art such as yoga or maybe just drawing can be very relaxing for them. So it's not necessarily a skill that they have to master in or something, but they can take arts as a subject in which they can relax in, or probably have some good knowledge about political science or how the country works. So that's how I think arts will be an important subject.
Shivika, if you may allow me, I want
Yes,
to
sir.
extend the answer. Nidhi
Sure,
ji,
sir.
right. So you talked about involving art with science, or basically the learning process. So as a space educator, what I believe is, in terms of space, we haven't seen the destinations beyond the solar system. It's all, even for our Milky Way image, which we see oftenly see on internet or in our textbook. There is no way, like nothing have went outside the Milky Way and clicked this marvelous photograph, right? So this is all artistic interpretation of totally linked with the mathematical modeling. And art really helped to express the mystery science. right? So you see Net Geo Discovery. At the bottom you will see the artist interpretation, right? Even if you're seeing from NASA, and then there are a lot of programs which like people are basically creating on planet Earth, like in NASA, in SpaceX, even in ISRO, which they don't like, they even like they cannot directly connect with what it look like, because we haven't reached the destination before. Now the art comes into the picture in terms of more advanced way, like, you know, using VFX, using graphics. You know, art is not just painting and you know, some normal way of, you know, things we know about art is, you know, expressing of anything which is unimaginable, like you know, like whatever you believe. So if I say how aliens look like, nobody saw aliens, right? Nobody on the planet can tell that I saw alien, but art made it possible to really visualize how alien can be. But again, this is all artistic understanding. So what I believe as a scientist, you know, scientist is artist with science, right? Means so this particular like art approach makes science more beautiful, technology more understandable, and this is a really great tool to express how like, you know, how we can really express science. And then most of the European countries and US and some developed nations already included the artistic approach to express various domains, right? And then this is what actually I believe that we can also adopt, like in our way of teaching and expressing the students about
Thank
any
you so
complex
much,
subject.
sir. Thank you so much, Shivika.
Thank you, Mom. Thank you all for joining.